and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode where we talked about how to effectively fill your cup. Today, for episode number 309, we are going to do an episode, a scratching the surface on commitment to change.
So I'm going to do something a little different here. So imagine you're running around a track and you're trying to go faster, but you keep going off the track. It is a coach's job to keep you on track. See what I did there?
That was great.
See what I did there? That was really, really good.
I'm in.
No, folks, if you're out there right now, you want to grow, you want to change, you want to improve. Kevin and I would not be the men we are today without our coaches and mentors. We want to help you. I have fallen so deeply in love with coaching because I'm seeing so many of my clients achieve their dreams. One of my clients just got offered a new position, new internship. Another one is now the director of operations for a company when he was working at Longhorn originally. It's just so cool what can happen over time with one-on-one coaching.
Yes. And if you are looking to join a community of people who are like you, if you have ever felt like you didn't belong and you're looking for somewhere you belong, you're looking for somewhere where you can share your story, you're looking for somewhere where people understand you and you can help others understand themselves, that is what Hyperconscious Nation is all about. Go to our website, hyperconsciouspodcast.com, click join #Hyperconscious Nation, and you will be granted access to our exclusive Facebook group.
Strong
for people
work.
like you.
And in there, you can rate our plugs 0 to 10. Who's better, Kevin or myself? Just kidding.
Just picture yourself running on a track. And when you run off the track, it was a good one.
Yeah,
I'll give
it's
it
real
to you.
good. Real
All right,
good.
so full disclosure, I am cooked right now. And the reason that we are doing this episode about commitment is because over the last 2 days, I have been helping Mark Metry with his audiobook, Screw Being Shy. So yesterday, I read his entire book. And then today, Mark and I sat down, and we are doing, like, in between the chapters, I interview him about the chapter, and we go deeper into some stories and that sort of thing. But my big takeaway from his book was you have to be very committed to anything you're doing if you want the results. And I said to Alan, like, why don't we talk about commitment and why it actually matters? Like, what are people actually committed to? We'll give examples of things that we may be too committed to or we may not be committed to enough, and the results we got were because of that. I just think that I remember we were talking about relationships, and when we were talking about relationships, I remember we talked about commitment. Sorry, I'm smiling, man. I'm jeffing.
I'm glad.
And I'm very happy. I'm good right now. I'm very warm in this place.
I see that.
Yes, I feel good. We were talking about the difference. Stop looking at me like that.
I can't
You're
help
looking
it.
at me like a monkey, and I got a banana. So what's the difference between a relationship and a committed relationship?
Right.
A relationship is something that, like, you and I are in. We're in a relationship. A committed relationship is where we're focused on growing
Right.
and learning about each other and getting better. So I think that the level of your results is going to depend on the level of commitment, and that is what we're here to talk about today.
This is going to be a good one. I
Yeah,
can already tell.
I can't stop laughing.
It's good. It's going to be a giggly rep. Okay, so one thing that Kevin used to talk about a lot that I wanted to bring up here is right now you and I can't do the splits. In
that's
this
the old
moment.
splits analogy, yes.
In this moment, we can't.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were committed to doing the splits, we could spend time practicing that every day for a year, and then by the end of the year, we could most likely do the splits. But only if we're committed to it. If you're not committed to that goal, most likely something else is going to take the place of that. Why would you do something every single day for a year if you weren't committed? And so without commitment, nothing great is really possible because you won't be consistent.
And the question, too, is do you actually want the results? That's the great thing about the splits analogy is unless you have some sort of injury or issue, you could do the splits, too, if you were committed enough to do it. But why would you be committed for 3 months to do something that you don't care about?
Exactly.
There's a reason why we choose to do the things that we choose. And, like, maybe you're not committed enough to finding a new job. That's why you haven't started looking.
Right.
Right? If you're committed, you're going to overcome some of those limiting beliefs. You're going to get out of that comfort zone a little bit more. There's a reason why Alan and I are where we are in terms of the podcast, because we're committed to giving you guys the best product that we can give you. At one point, 1 episode a week was enough.
Right.
But we're committed to making this our main thing, obviously besides our relationships, right? And that's why we're up 4 episodes now. And that's why a lot of people do 1 a week or 1 every other week. They're just not as committed as we are.
Yeah.
That's all.
It's interesting, man. So remember when I talked about that website, when I was in college, there was a website called Stumble
Yeah.
Upon. And basically what this was, for those of you who don't know, StumbleUpon.com, you would basically just do weird stuff in your webcam, like random things, and then you'd stumble upon other people doing random things on their webcam. And I think
sounds safe.
right. I never used this, but a lot of people in my dorm did. And I remember thinking to myself, like, that's what a lot of people do with their life. They just stumble upon whatever comes into their orbit. You're never going to stumble upon being able to do the splits, ever. You never would just randomly be able to do the splits naturally. You have to commit yourself to doing the splits and then follow through with the consistent actions to actually make that possible. That's what we're talking about today. If you're not committed to a specific result that you've decided in advance to get, you won't stumble upon it. You're never going to stumble upon something great for the most part.
And then the other reason why this was a takeaway to start was in Mark's book, he gives you like a ton of tactical things, great examples, great stories, like what worked for him. But you can have, we give you guys a lot of fundamentals. We give you a lot of examples, a lot of stories. The level of impact that this podcast will have on you is really up to how committed you are to making the changes.
Exactly.
Right? I think our relationship episodes where we sit down and talk to like Tori Leto or Maya Diamond, those episodes do really well. Now, the results you're getting from those episodes in terms of like, are you actually having the tough conversations after? That depends. How committed are you to making sure you're having the most fulfilling relationship?
Right.
And that's what I want to reiterate throughout this episode. It doesn't matter whether or not you have the answers. This is why knowledge is potential. It's not necessarily power.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you have all the answers. How committed to those results are you? How committed to making those answers actually worth something are you? So what is something you never accomplished because you weren't fully committed? We'll start with you first.
Me?
So the question is to you guys if you're watching or listening.
Right.
But obviously Alan and I will answer this because, giving you guys examples will hopefully help you figure out if maybe you're right now you could be doing something, and we're going to talk about that. But, commitment is so important. We're going to highlight times where we weren't committed and the results we got from them.
We're also going to highlight when we were too committed to the wrong things.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 5 questions on the whiteboard. Number 1 is, what is something you never accomplished because you weren't committed fully? For me, my first bodybuilding show. So I went in with the poor assumption that, again, you've probably heard this before, but I watched one YouTube video and I thought that novice meant it was your first time ever competing. It turns out you can compete novice until you win a novice show. So I assumed that it was everyone's first time. And so I wasn't nearly committed enough to actually win on that stage. So I ended up getting 5th out of 6 people, which is pretty brutal.
Yeah, it was not ideal. For me, it was my early relationships, right? Like when I was younger, I had no idea about personal development, about self-development, about mindfulness, about internal work. I had no idea about any of that stuff. So I wasn't necessarily committed to getting better in my relationships because I wasn't committed to having the tough conversations. I thought if you were having hard conversations, you were screwing up.
Yeah, I remember you saying like we needed to talk was like what you didn't want to hear.
I never wanted to hear that because I was like, oh, I'm screwing something up.
Right.
Where now it's like, okay, tell me what I'm screwing up so I can fix it.
Right.
But I don't necessarily know that I wasn't committed to having a successful relationship. I didn't know what it was going to take.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's awareness.
I wasn't aware of how committed I actually should be.
That's another thing. Same with me, with the bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of how committed I needed to
Right.
be. That's why we made poor assumptions there.
So that's another reason why we're telling you these stories. I had somebody reach out. It was one of my clients. We were talking about a relationship. And she said, like, yeah, my boyfriend told me it's never going to get easier. And he didn't say it in like the right way in terms of like, it's never going to be like painless where we don't have things that we have to work on.
Of course.
He basically said it's never going to be easier as in like nothing's ever going to change, but not necessarily the right answer. But I don't think that, the result might not get easier. You might not actually get what you want on the micro. On the micro, you might not get what you want, but if you're committed to the macro, that's when real change is made anyway.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure I'm not spitting out words that don't make sense here.
No.
I'm just taking words that I see fly through my head, and I'm like, that sounds good there.
That's the interesting thing about commitment that I wanted to say as well, and I'm glad that you highlighted that. You can be committed to something on the macro and be willing to fail on the micro. But with my bodybuilding shows, like I'm 3 shows in, lost my first one, came in 5th. Second one I won. Third one came in 4th. I'm still committed to getting my pro card. I'm still committed to that dream, even though I wasn't committed enough at times along the way because of poor assumptions. So there is macro commitments and micro commitments, and they're very connected. So, for example, let's say you were committed to being a great boyfriend, but are you committed today to make sure Taryn feels loved? Those are connected.
Right.
How can you be committed on the macro without micro accountability?
Well, I think the other thing is too, if you had your experience in bodybuilding and then you realized and became aware of what it actually takes to succeed, obviously to a higher degree, and you didn't want to do it again, that means you're not committed enough.
Exactly.
That's exactly what it means.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
As long as it's a conscious choice.
Yes, as
Right.
long as you choose. Okay.
Exactly.
What are you currently too committed to that is no longer serving you?
Tough question.
And I want you guys to answer this.
Right.
This, honestly, this is what we should do. When we're starting episodes, if you guys are listening in your car, obviously I say this every time as a joke, don't do it. But maybe you should come back and do this at a later time.
Pull over.
Pull over. Again, all of these whiteboards are in Hyperconscious Nation.
Yep.
So if you don't remember or you don't want to write it down, you can gladly join the group and you'll be able to do this. But I'd love if you guys sat down and said, all right, number one, what is something I never accomplished because I wasn't fully committed? Let's go and get deep on these things.
Right.
Right? And that will make sure that you are actually committed to getting the most out of this podcast. So
That'll
that's my
change
challenge
your
to
life
you.
more than just listening
Yes.
by a significant
But don't
margin.
do it while you're driving because that will change your life too.
In
to
the
death.
worst way. Exactly. To death. Okay, so for you, what are something that you were... And
That's
by the
not-
way,
that's
in
not how this works. I asked
Hyperconscious Nation, I know you did,
I
but
asked
I'm
you.
going to flip the script. So I apologize for poor handwriting. I'm going to do better.
Handwriting.
Handwriting in Hyperconscious Nation, the whiteboards will be there with better handwriting in the future.
Okay.
Okay, so I am too committed to. Oh, wow.
This is brutal.
What are you currently too committed to?
Best
that is no
podcasters
longer
in the world,
serving you, right? I am too committed, in my opinion, to working hard rather than working smart. There's a big difference between movement and achievement. There's a big difference between doing a lot of stuff and actually making progress. So Peter Drucker says you can spend a lot of time trying to be more efficient at doing things you should never have done at all. So for me, I'm so consistent, but sometimes I think I'm consistent with less effective things than I need to. So I'm trying to focus on working smarter rather than harder. Obviously, you need both, but yeah, that's
How do you know? How do you know you're too committed?
That's a great question. I would say there are things that I'm doing that take a lot of my time that don't necessarily move the needle as much as I'd like. It's new awareness. I have a new awareness of where I'm spending my time lately because I'm reading a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and the new awareness is making me realize I'm not as effective as I'd like to be.
Okay. I think that's good. I think showing how you figure out you got to know what the end goal is, right? The only way that it is or it isn't serving you is basing that and weighing that against what the ultimate goal
A good example of that is like if you want to get stronger at bench press and you're only benching the bar every time,
right?
You can do 300 reps. You can be consistent, go to the gym every day, but you're not actually getting stronger.
Right.
Whereas if you are only trying to burn calories, that might actually work. So it depends on the goal.
Yeah. So for me, it's podcast post-production work. Like, as I said, I've mentioned this on a few episodes prior. I've been working with somebody to do the teaser clips because that can take me, depending on what I'm doing, that's like an hour and a half for 3 minutes of content, right? It's a long time. And there's other things that I could be doing. I could be working with clients. I could be getting us speeches. I could be, there's a lot of different things I could be doing. I could be meditating. It doesn't have to be, okay, you have an hour and a half free work. You better work for an hour and a half. No, that might be, I take 15 minutes of that for me.
Again, that's how to be more effective.
Right.
These questions are changing our lives right now. So please ask yourself these questions as well, because now once you acknowledge something, we're going to have to shift it. Number 3.
And make sure you answer them too. That's the thing. Like, again, this is why the commitment thing is like huge for me right now. We're giving you guys questions that are definitely helping us.
Right.
And that's always the goal. It's always the goal. If you don't dig and say like, well, I should write down my relationship. Like I should write down that my relationship, I'm very committed, but it doesn't seem like the person I'm with is, and I don't see anything changing in the future. I should write that down, but let me write down makeup. or
Right.
something.
Right.
This is where you got to be real with yourself. If
Fire.
you are doing something right now that you are very committed to, that is no longer serving you, that you're not getting the results you want, that somebody else isn't putting in the effort, and they're not committed to the same cause, maybe it's time for you to move on.
The first step to changing something is acknowledging it, that it needs to change.
Yeah.
So imagine you did put down your intimate partner, like your intimate relationship is something you're too committed to, which I am guilty of in the past. My last relationship, I will say wholeheartedly, I was way too committed to something that was not serving me. It is what it is. I learned a lot, but I also stayed in that too long because I was too committed. Okay, once you acknowledge the fact that that's true, now you can do something about it. Doesn't mean you have to leave. Maybe it's a conversation. Right? You maybe you have a conversation that you wouldn't have had if you didn't at least acknowledge it. So you got to dig. Even us, when we asked these questions, it was hard to come up with an answer because we want to pretend we're doing everything right.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
And the thing I always say to people is like at the beginning of my speech, not all of them, but some, depending on what I'm talking about, I like to say my goal is not necessarily to teach you, to motivate you, or to inspire you. My goal is to ask you questions that you've never heard before, and for you to give answers that you would never give.
Yeah.
Because that's what this is all about. That's what hyperconscious is. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Because of this. How do I stop doing what I'm doing? Is what I'm doing serving me? Is it best for me? Is it not best for me?
Right.
And it's difficult, but it's worth it. I promise.
Stirs the pot. Asking these questions will stir the pot. It's
Stirs
uncomfortable, but
the
it's worth it. And then you'll never have a midlife crisis when you're 40 and wake up and go, what if my whole life was wrong? Because you checked in along the way.
You think like these shoes, man?
Fire. They're really nice, actually. Number 3.
Tell Taryn you said that.
Did she get them for
Yes.
you? Oh, no.
These are my favorite shoes, man.
I'll show
the
Taryn, I
camera.
apologize.
I'll show the
They're
camera.
actually very, very nice. Now that I know you got them for them, they're very nice. Number 3, what's something or someone you might regret not being more committed to?
Yeah. So I said meditation. Only because, again, I think a lot of these answers, and this is a whole nother thing. Think of it this way. We say you are the sum average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, the influences around you. If you look at this episode is because I've been spending time with Mark Metry in person and reading his book. My answer to this one is because of Mark.
Right.
Because I've been reading about meditation and seeing the results that Mark gets. So this is like an episode on an episode. But for me, it's meditation because I'm seeing how many people have we met that said, hey, you guys got to meditate more. Dave, Mark Metry,
Almost all of the
Dennis and
successful
Kathy
ones.
Lang when we were in Florida are all about meditation.
Oh, yeah.
Right? A lot of people are saying it and a lot of people are doing it. I want to make sure that I'm doing it and not just saying it. So
I will say this, very few successful people that I've met, like very successful people and emotionally stable, happy people, don't meditate. I will say that.
Yeah.
Emilia meditates regularly, and that's helping me as well. That's something I need to do more of as well. Okay, so Kevin did something that he might regret not being more committed to. I'm going to do someone. So I believe that I might regret not spending more time with 2 of my best friends, which is Matt and Nate. So Nate actually messaged me this morning saying, hey, man, so grateful you're getting after it, grinding. I can't wait until we can reconnect. He's been trying to reconnect for a long time, and I haven't had a chance to do that. I haven't made the time. I haven't had a chance. I haven't made the time to connect with Nate. And for those of you who don't know, Nate taught me a very large portion of everything I know in fitness. And I miss Matt dearly, too. That's Kevin's roommate and a dear friend of mine who I see occasionally, but not enough.
all right. Number 4.
Tough questions, man.
These are not easy questions.
Right. I also need to make it clear, because I said something earlier. When I said my last relationship was something I stayed too committed to, that means not the one I'm in now. The one I'm in now, I'm fully committed to, and I'm so grateful. Here's the other thing. When you are too committed to something, don't get down on yourself. Because even though I was too committed to my last intimate relationship, it also has made me appreciate the one I'm in now. So I don't want you to beat yourselves up. I just want you to acknowledge whatever's true for you.
Yeah, and reflect. What did I learn?
Exactly.
Right? It was not a waste of time as long as you learned, and you learned as long as you're willing to search for the lessons. How do you stay committed? So this is something we talk about a lot. Like, if you guys are on a journey and you're in the early stages and it doesn't seem, not even the early stages, the middle stages, and it doesn't seem like you're getting any closer, how do you stay committed?
One thing that jumped off the page for me just now, I was thinking about my last bodybuilding show, and I was committed, delusionally committed.
Someone
I didn't know what it would really take of me. But it was like 10 o'clock at night, and it was a weekday, and it was a thunderstorm, and it was pouring rain. And I remember I got a plastic bag to put my phone in, and I put my hoodie on, and I put my AirPods in, and I went for a run because I was trying to out-train a bad diet, to be frank. But I remember I didn't want to go. The last thing I wanted to do was go out and run in the rain. But I remember thinking to myself, I would rather act my way into feeling than feel my way into action. This is a big thing that I try to do a lot. If you've ever heard of Mel Robbins' 5-second rule, you know that this can work. So if you don't feel like doing something, you can count down from 5 and then do it, and then the feeling will come after. So I tell people a lot, if you don't want to go to the gym, don't focus on not wanting to go to the gym. Focus on how you're going to feel after the gym. Because I bet you've never regretted actually going. Maybe not never, but rarely. Okay, so some people act their way into feelings. Other people feel their way into action. You need to know what end you're on. And when you don't feel like doing something that your higher self wants you to do, try to act your way into the feeling.
This is an interesting thing, too. I remember, how far out were you from your show when you were running in the rain? Wasn't it pretty close?
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks.
I remember when you told me that. You're like, dude, I was literally like out in the rain. Like, I want to win this thing. I said, dude, if you were worried about this 3 months ago, you wouldn't have been in the rain.
I know.
You would have been.
I wouldn't have had to do
You
that.
would have been home resting.
I know.
If you wanted to.
Right.
Right. But so that's another interesting.
If I was
thing.
more committed early on, I wouldn't have had to be so committed late in the game.
It's almost like your commitment compounds.
Yeah.
If
100%.
you start your commitment early enough,
right,
it helps.
that was fire.
Yeah, well,
It's very true.
I don't have many functioning brain cells right now because I'm cooked, but the ones I do, they're firing.
Yeah.
They're firing.
It's a really good
I
quote.
feel really good right now.
I'm going to take that
But
quote.
I don't feel
for sure.
No, don't take that. So how do you, in my opinion, how do you stay committed? You remember why you started in the first place. That's the number one thing. When people reach out and they want to start a podcast, don't start a podcast on something that you're not that interested in.
Right.
Because when times do get rough and when you're starting out and you have one listen, right, and nobody knows who you are and you don't have anybody reaching out, you might not want to do it anymore.
When was the last time your commitment was tested? Like
To the
really
podcast?
Really tested.
The
In
podcast?
life, in anything. Where you had to remember why you started. Because I do that too. I go to my purpose prayer. When I had to do that recently.
Dude, the gym.
Right.
My shoulder had at the time been hurting me for like 3 years. No exaggeration. It had been hurting me for 3. I wasn't doing certain exercises because I physically couldn't.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. I'm always in pain. It sucks. But what did I do? I got even more committed. I got committed to figuring out how to keep doing it.
Athlete Next.
I followed somebody on Instagram. Then I started watching his videos every day on YouTube. And then I realized, like, okay, this isn't working. Now let me get resourceful. Oh, Matt's mom is a physical therapist. She loves helping me. I'll go see her. She told me what exercises to do. I feel great now.
Right.
Right? Except my knee is hurting me tremendously.
Is it?
Yeah, it's not good.
What's the next step there?
Who knows, man? Cut it off.
Yeah.
So I think it's honestly, let's reflect. Let's go back into like, why did we start this in the first place? Why did I start personal development? Like, if you're watching or listening, because I was in an abusive relationship and I didn't know that that's not normal. And I didn't know that I could get better. So I started learning and I started growing. Are you done growing? No, not unless you want to be. You don't have to be. So you stay committed by remembering why you started in the first place.
Just to clarify, it wasn't you an abusive.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Sorry.
It sounded like that.
Oh.
No, but
I looked at the camera when I said it, so I was trying to talk to the camera.
Exactly.
The people listening have no idea that I'm looking at the camera. So no, it was not me.
Which is like 80% of our listens.
So what?
Number 5.
So what?
I know.
If you guys want to see us, we're on YouTube.
Yes, we are. There's a 2-week lead time
Currently, there is.
until the post-production.
Yeah. Why don't you take it easy?
You know I'm kidding.
You got Adobe
I'm kidding.
Premiere.
Dude, I know. I literally so grateful. The most grateful. I think
Lead
about that
with
all
praise.
the time. Yeah.
Lead with praise. All right, number 5.
Number 5.
Go ahead.
Okay. Why does commitment matter so much?
I think commitment matters because it is the biggest difference between doing something and doing something well and doing something to the highest level of your ability. Anybody can get in a relationship. Anybody can start a business. Anybody can go to the gym. Anybody can read a book. You know what I mean? Anybody can do any number of things, but it's the people who are committed to being the best in the world or the people who are committed to saying, like, you know what? Good enough isn't good enough for me. I want better than that. I think commitment determines your results. And the results that you want are going to require you to have a high level of commitment.
I remember in my speeches, I'll put up a slide of the beginning of a triathlon,
Oh, yeah?
and anybody can start a race, but who stays with it when it gets really hard? Last weekend, it was Sunday,
Sunday.
and my mom and Emilia went on a 2-mile walk together with little Tucker. And my mom had the idea of, why don't you go for a run and then lap us? So around my block is 2 miles, and I'm like, in my head, like, 4 miles. Okay, well, we're doing a triathlon. Yeah, let's see how my cardio does. I haven't done cardio in a while. Let's see this. It was brutal. Okay, very few things hurt like running 4 miles and trying to do it quickly. It's just, there's so many hills on this loop. It is pure, like, it's so much pain. And it's funny because you can talk about it, but when you're in it, it's like, am I going to stop or am I going to keep going? And it's a decision that is constantly running through your head. Like, should I stop? You think I should stop? Yeah, maybe I should stop. You know, I'm not a runner. I don't need to run. But then again, it's like David Goggins says, like, you have to push through that suffering because you're committed to being the type of person who doesn't quit when it gets hard. If you're the type of person who quits when it gets hard, you might as well just say, I don't want to do anything great. Because at the end of the day, why does commitment matter so much? Nothing great. Imagine a relationship that you're not committed to being great for the long run. No chance.
No.
You have to be committed if you want something wonderful. It just is what it is. And that's why this is such a great episode.
This was a fire episode. I thoroughly enjoy this, guys. So, again, this is the takeaway. Like Alan said, nothing great comes unless you're committed to it. But I want you to listen to these questions, sit down, write out your answers. Like, that's what we should start doing. We should start, if we're going to do an episode and we're writing down questions, I'm going to challenge you guys to write them down. And I don't care if you have to pause the episode. If you have some extra time, go through these with us. If you don't have the extra time, maybe make a little time for this. Because the behind the scenes of this is Alan and I are learning from this.
I know.
And if we're learning from this, that means that you guys can learn something. Maybe it's definitely something different.
Right.
But I think it's worth it. And if you guys are committed to being the most hyper-conscious versions of yourself, which you are if you're listening to this, then you can do this.
Last thing I want to say, 28 seconds on the clock.
Well, that's that. Who knows if that's right.
Right. So 5% of your time should be spent on the problem. Once you answer these questions, only 5% on the problem, 95% on the solution. It doesn't have to be some great earth-shattering solution. Let's say, what's something that I am not committed enough to that I might regret? What if your answer is, I haven't been committed enough to my fitness goals? Okay, now that you've written that, what's one thing you're going to do differently? It doesn't have to be this overwhelming thing. Any little shift compounded over time, like Kevin said, your life is going to be the compound effect of your commitment over time.
Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this. Up next, we have a very special episode with Sam Bakhtiar. He is many things. He's a podcaster. He's a CEO. He's an entrepreneur. He used to be a bodybuilder, but he came here from Iran when he was just a little dude, and he's been through so many things. He started businesses. His businesses have failed. It was a fire episode, and I think you guys will definitely enjoy it.
He's incredibly committed, so this is perfect timing.
It is.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed. We hope you will enjoy, and we will talk to you on Sunday.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.